Hey guys, my name is Dice Rollin, and today I have a review of the movie Annabelle and its sequel that recently came out, Annabelle Creation. These movies are centered around the doll Annabelle, and for those of you who know, Annabelle is real, but that just adds to the fear of the movies. She's actually a Raggedy Ann doll that currently resides in the Warrens Museum, so naturally it makes sense that these movies are based in the same universe as The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, which were also about different cases from the Warrens. So without further ado, this is my original versus sequel review of Annabelle vs. Annabelle Creation. Annabelle was directed by John R. Leonetti and was released in 2014. It stars Tony Amendola, Alfre Woodard, Ward Horton, and, ironically, Annabelle Watts, as well as many others. The movie starts with the events that are actually from the Warrens' case for Annabelle. Two nurses have possession of Annabelle and they're experiencing paranormal activity from it. We're then shown a year earlier where Mia and John are preparing for their first child. John gives Mia a doll that she'd been looking for a long time, and that turns out to be Annabelle. That night, their next-door neighbors, the Higgins, are murdered. John goes to investigate while this idiot just walks right outside, leaving the door wide open. This results in the Higgins' daughter and boyfriend getting inside and attacking Mia and John. The police arrive and kill the boyfriend. The daughter kills herself, and Mia's baby survives the stabbing. John and Mia return home with the doctor's orders of Mia remaining in bed for the duration of her pregnancy. They certainly wouldn't want to move after not one but two murderers die in their house. Just scrub that blood off the walls and it's good as new. During the next couple days, strange activity goes on in John and Mia's house. Mia decides she no longer likes Annabelle, so John throws her out. Detective Clarkin tells John and Mia about the cult that the Higgins' daughter and her boyfriend were involved in. While John is gone on business, Annabelle tries to burn the house down, which sends Mia into labor. With Mia convinced that the house is cursed, the three of them move into an apartment. However, Annabelle appears in a box while they're unpacking. Mia decides to keep her this time. And one day, Mia goes for a walk with Leah and meets Evelyn. Upon returning to the apartment, she finds drawings from the children on the stairs earlier. But these drawings turn out to be rather gruesome and depict Leah being hit by a truck. Mia is plagued by different ghostly experiences, but John isn't quite sure what to think of her telling him this. One night, Mia goes down into the basement and the demon that's been using Annabelle's appearance attacks her, leaving her with a temporary mark in the shape of an A. The next day, Mia speaks with Detective Clarkin about what he found out about the cult Annabelle was a part of. Mia goes to the bookstore and talks with Evelyn about what's been going on. On her return home, the baby stroller gets run over by a garbage truck after Mia sees Annabelle's reflection in the door. But that's okay because Leah was in her arms the whole time. The demon continues to torment Mia and threaten Leah, until Father Perez is called to help them. Mia explains to him what's been happening and that the doll is a key part. Father Perez tells them that it's a conduit in order for the demon to get their souls. But a demon can't just take a soul. It has to be offered to it. Father Perez then offers to take Annabelle out of the apartment until they can call the Warrens to help. But before the father can get inside the church, he's fusrudad backwards and put into the hospital. The next day, Mia and Evelyn come back from shopping with Leah and literally all hell breaks loose. Father Perez wakes up and tells John that the doll isn't in the church, so he rushes home. Meanwhile, the demon has taken Leah and forces Evelyn out of the apartment. The demon then torments Mia some more and gives her an ultimatum: her soul in exchange for Leah's safety. Mia prepares to accept this offer, but John and Evelyn stop her. Evelyn sacrifices her soul for Mia and Leah's sake. After that, we're shown that Annabelle ended up in an antique shop before she was bought by the mother of one of the two nurses from before. And after that, of course, the Warrens took it. And now on to the second film. Annabelle Creation was directed by the successful horror short YouTuber Pony Smasher, or David F. Sandberg. It was released in August of this year. It stars Anthony LaPaglia, Miranda Otto, Talitha Eliana Bateman, and many more. The movie starts with a disturbing showcase of doll parts, while the doll maker himself, Mr. Mullins, works on his latest creation. This turns out to be, of course, Annabelle. We're given some scenes that show Mr. and Mrs. Mullins with their young daughter Bee. The next day, after going to church, the Mullins get a flat tire, so Mr. Mullins tries to take care of it. One of the nuts off the tire rolls into the middle of the road and Bee attempts to retrieve it, only to be hit by an oncoming car. 12 years later, a bus full of orphaned girls arrives at the Mullins house. Mr. Mullins shows them and Sister Charlotte around the house and where their bedrooms are. Some rather spooky things happen, including the dumbwaiter door opening on its own and Janice's crutch appearing behind her. That night, everyone has dinner with Mr. Mullins, but he has to attend to Mrs. Mullins, who never comes out of her room. With some flickering lights, everyone goes to bed. But Janice receives a note very much like how Bee used to leave notes for Mr. Mullins. So she investigates who's doing this, and receives yet another note from someone in the bedroom that Mr. Mullins had said was locked. This turns out to be Bee's old room. Janice finds a dollhouse modeled after the Mullins house and investigates the closet where she finds Annabelle. Being a relatively smart girl, she shuts the door and leaves the doll alone. But Annabelle keeps opening the closet until Janice throws a sheet over the doll. As Janice heads over to the other side of the room, because she's 100% done with this ghost shit, something underneath the sheet gets up and follows her. Oh hell no! Janice sees Mr. Mullins outside as he heads back into the house. She turns around to see the sheet-wearing ghost coming towards her, only to find out that there is nothing under the sheet. Janice promptly leaves the room just in time as Mr. Mullins is coming up the stairs. The next morning, the other girls find a well and discuss whether or not Mrs. Mullins is in there. No, that's ridiculous. He keeps her in the basement. Meanwhile, Janice confesses to Sister Charlotte that she'd gone into Bee's room. So, as penance, Sister Charlotte has her unpack boxes so they can convert a room of the Mullins house into a schoolroom. Linda, believing that the other girls are playing hide-and-seek with her, finds a hidden space under the stairs, but gets jump-scared by Annabelle. That night, two of the older girls try to scare each other with stories about Mrs. Mullins, and get scared by what they believe to be Mrs. Mullins herself. But Mr. Mullins tells them that that's impossible, as his wife hasn't been able to walk for years. Another day goes by and we learn that Mrs. Mullins wears a partial prosthetic face from the accident she was in. And there's a link between Annabelle and Bee since Janet finds a picture of the two together. That night, Janice is attacked by a demon that takes the form of Bee. She's brought back to the Mullins house in a wheelchair since she was severely injured by the encounter. The demon then messes with Linda, and the next day, while Janice is outside, the demon forces her into the barn area. Disguised as Bee, the demon also pulls an Evil Dead and pretty much throws up in Janice's mouth. And naturally that means she's possessed, but Linda notices the difference. Linda tells Mr. Mullins that Janice had gone into Bee's bedroom, and he then faces the demon who ends up killing him. But not before breaking every single one of his fingers! Ow. That night, Linda attempts to take Annabelle away from Janice, believing that this will solve the problem. The demon almost pulls her down into the well with it, but Sister Charlotte manages to save her. They return to the house only to find that the doll is where Janice should be. Sister Charlotte confronts Mrs. Mullins about what's going on, and she explains that after Bee was killed, they started to notice a presence in their house. At first, they thought it was their beloved daughter, Bee, but soon realized that it was a demon using her appearance to get to them. It attacked Mrs. Mullins, which resulted in her being bedridden and having to wear a partial mask. Mr. Mullins sought advice from the church, and he lined the walls in the closet of Bee's room with pages from the Bible in order to keep the demon sealed in. But since Janice opened the closet, she released the demon. The other girls look for Janice, who attacks them, and the demon kills Mrs. Mullins. It then attacks Sister Charlotte, and the older girls attempt to use a truck to get away. But a possessed scarecrow separates them at the barn. Linda uses the dumbwaiter to try to escape Janice, and ends up hiding in Bee's room. Janice finds her, and Sister Charlotte manages to trap Janice in the closet. They all escape the house, and the police arrive to investigate. They check out the closet and find that Janice isn't there, but Annabelle is. So they take the doll as evidence, and the girls and Sister Charlotte leave. After this, we're shown that Janice, now Annabelle, went to a different orphanage, and was adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Higgins, the neighbors of John and Mia. and we know what happens there. Now, there is an interesting little clip at the end of the credits where we get to see Valak in an abbey in Romania. So now comes the part where I tell you which movie you should like so you don't have to do any of that pesky free thinking for yourselves. Annabelle lacked a lot of things that good horror movies have. I honestly didn't care very much about John or Mia. I was more interested in the character of Evelyn. The scares weren't very scary, and they relied too heavily on jump scares, which is a horror movie sin. The ending didn't make very much sense, since all through the movie they're telling you not to give your soul to the demon. But that's exactly what they did. As far as Annabelle creation goes, David Sandberg has shown a lot of promise in the horror genre, and that was even before he came to the Hollywood movie-making business. I honestly feel like he saved a branch of these real-life-based horror movies with Annabelle creation. The first movie wasn't horrible, but it sucked, which is why when I heard there would be a sequel, I just rolled my eyes. And then I heard about who would be directing it, and I was honestly curious about how it would turn out. I also wanted to see how they would expand upon what seemed to be a one-path story. And I have to say that I liked how he did it. I liked the concept of Annabelle, but I feel like they went about it the wrong way. I also feel like they could have made an interesting movie out of the actual story of the two nurses who had Annabelle before the Warrens took her. As far as Annabelle creation goes, I like the ambiance, the scares, and the tension, and the characters and how it all tied in with the rest of the story. So, in my original versus sequel review of Annabelle versus Annabelle creation, I'd say Annabelle creation was much better than the first Annabelle. It did a much better job in practically every aspect. So with that being said, I must applaud Mr. Sandberg in an effectively scary possessed doll movie, and I look forward to his future projects. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like to let me know. Don't forget to leave a comment down below telling me what you thought of these movies. And don't forget to share this video to help the channel grow, and subscribe for more videos and reviews like this. See you later.